Man, I'm glad you made it to church. We seem to be full. If you got a seat beside you, put your hand in the air. If you got a seat beside you, if you got somebody sitting beside you don't like, push them out in the aisle. Let's make room for our visitors. We're so glad you're in the house of God today. I was kidding. I'm Pastor Corey, by the way. This is a lovely Pastor Aaron. Welcome to the house of Venue Church. So today's kind of a special day. There's a street party after this service as well. We want you to partake in that. That's all free. You've already paid for that, Venue Church. You're incredibly generous. Tonight is our building dedication. Just give me a sec there. But it's going to be awesome, you guys. And Pastor Nate Pacini is here from Substance Church, Minneapolis. Our pastors, Peter and Carolyn, and Pastor Nate. He has been with us every step of the way in Venue Church in our journey. We've got a long journey, guys. We've been doing this for 8 years. But it has been a highly impactful, difficult journey, but the Lord has blessed us. Thank you. You're going to hear from him tonight at the building dedication. Do not get here late. Also, kids, if you're bringing kids, we have a movie night for them happening in the gym, so that's going to be awesome. And it's actually Pastor Nate's birthday today. Happy birthday. Thank you for spending your birthday here. But it's my fake birthday today. And I'm turning 50, and he's not turning 50, so he's got to do whatever I tell him. Obey your elders. But we're also kind of celebrating my tipping point into there. So thank you for coming out today. Also, we have some friends here in the house. I just want you to greet them. The Hansons from Grand Prairie drove down all the way yesterday. Thank you for being with us on our special day. And we got a church plant happening in Swift Current, and you are a part of that financially, by the way, as well. This is James in Atlanta. Pelly is from Swift Current. And so if you guys know anybody in Saskatchewan, guys, everybody in Saskatchewan needs Jesus real bad. So send them to this incredible people. Come and meet them afterwards. All right, we're in our Church on the Wild series, where we talk about who church is for, like who Jesus thought it was for. Today's sermon is really about the 100 lost sheep and the one lost sheep and how Jesus feels about the lost. That might be you today, by the way. And we built this church for you so that you could be found. Today's sermon is called 99 Problems. All you tattoo people, don't make eye contact with me. It is a Jay-Z song. You shouldn't listen to it. So don't go home and be like, Pastor said, Pastor did not say. But it's a good sermon title. And we're edgy. And it's going to be great. So I'm still kind of thinking back on First Wednesday. Like, that was good, right? That mark First Wednesday on your calendars. We have a night of worship and prophetic ministry and like ministry time and prayer. And it's the first Wednesday of every month. And we want you to be a partaker in that. Okay. Last week I talked about doing life with people in small groups. Jesus had a small group. You should be in a small group. We are so proud of you guys. 409 people in small groups. 409 people. Hold on. I'm not done. Not including kids. Not including the 220 that were at youth on Thursday. Great job, you guys. It's not too late to join a small group. Start doing life with people. All right. Jesus said this. Suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Won't she light a lamp and sweep the entire house and search carefully until she finds it? So Jesus is saying, you won't get dad until you remember your mom when she lost something in the house and went nuts till she found it. Who loves their mom? What was your mom like when she lost something? Jesus is like, you don't get dad if you don't get your mom when she lost something in the house. He said this, when she finds it, she'll call in her friends and neighbors and say, rejoice with me, I've found my lost coins. And they're like, why do we care? We have all of our stuff. There's something in the heart of God that we're going to talk about today. In the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels when even one sinner repents. When even one sinner gives their life to Jesus, there is joy in heaven. I hope this is a church that there is joy in. Touch your neighbor before you sit down and say, do you know where your car keys are? Have a seat, everybody. Thanks, team. Next week, I'm preaching one of my favorite topics in Church in the Wild, and that's It's called The Blueprint, and it's like, how does Venue Church avoid church politics? Some of y'all are like, church politics are the worst. I'm like, they are the worst, unless you're in minor hockey or dance or anything else in the world. But how does Venue Church, how do we navigate? How do we be a church that doesn't do politics on the inside? How do we do family on the inside? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But, everybody coming into church kind of has a preconceived idea of what they would like it to be. But Jesus also has a preconceived idea about what he would like his house to be in that sense. And so what we do is like everybody coming in is like, I'm coming in with this blueprint of like what I'd like you to do, Pastor Corey, in the church. And next week is what I call the blueprint swap, where I'm going to be like, thank you so much. That took a lot of time and energy. This is what we're building. And this is all that we know how to build because the Lord showed us how he wanted this church to be built. Now, every church in town that preaches Jesus is amazing. You will never hear us talk trash about a church or a pastor. We love every church in town that is a Jesus church. And they sell ice cream, and we sell ice cream. But this is how we make this kind that God showed us to do. And they're going to reach people they're going to reach, and we're going to reach people that maybe we could be the only ones that would reach. And so that's next week. Also, if you're new to church, we want you to get on the inside track. There's Pizza with Pastors with Pastor Aaron and I next week after the second service. So sign up for that in the lobby at the Robot. Just go to the Robot. He will meet all of your needs. We have a robot. Here's our false belief today. Every sermon, I try to tackle a false belief because the things that we do that aren't great, our bad behaviors, our bad thinking, our bad emotions, all come from bad beliefs. So if we can take care of a bad belief, we can actually fix all the rest of it too. Rather than just focus on behavior, we actually get to the root of that behavior. And here's our false belief we're going to tear down today. I can be like Jesus without his obsession. So like I can follow Jesus, I can look like Jesus, I can talk like Jesus, I can be friends with Jesus without his obsession. And so here's this idea is like I can have a version of Jesus' obsession with the lost, maybe a lesser version, maybe a different obsession altogether, and still follow Jesus. Oh, it's quiet. It's going to get worse before it gets better. If you're married, there's probably like common obsessions that brought you together. Pastor Aaron and I, one of our common obsessions was a band called Radiohead. Do we listen to real music anymore? Anybody know who Radiohead is? Smashing Pumpkins? Despite all my rage, I'm still just, come on, Gen X, a rat in a cage. He knows it. No headbanging in church. No tattoos in church. We have these like common obsession things that were like a base, they brought us together. My best friend knew Aaron before I did, and he called me up on the phone one day and he says, you should meet this girl. She went and saw Radiohead in Vancouver and then drove through the night to see them in Calgary the next day. And then he says, she's kind of, and then he pauses. And I said, kind of weird? And he goes, yeah, she's weird. You'd like her. And some of those like beginning obsessions of Taco Bell. Come on, somebody. Real Mexican food. And Dr. Pepper and Star Wars. She had a life-size Darth Vader cut up in her basement. And I walked around the corner and I'm like, woo! I hadn't even seen her yet, but it was a done deal. These common obsessions. When we went to set up our lives together, we did have our main obsession was to follow Jesus. And I think that for relationships, if you don't share a mission and all you're doing is coexisting for personal happiness, which is a byproduct, by the way, of happiness belongs to the Lord. It's a byproduct of purpose. But mission is one of those things that keeps a relationship focused and allows you to forgive and to put up with. Not that Erin has to put up with me. We don't talk about it like that. She gets to live with me. Like, what a privilege, right? I know what a privilege. Let's just say what you're thinking. One obsession that we didn't share, though, was the first time that I went to pick her up to go on a date. We were going to go watch a movie, and she lived with, I think, 4 girls in a duplex in Calgary, Christian girls. And so I knock on the door. She opens the door. I'm standing in the entry, and it was an entry like the size of this table. So I'm standing right there in the entry. And she goes, I'll be right there. I'm just going to go get a pair of boots. I'm going to get my boots, but I can't find them. So how many ladies know that boots are important? All right. I'll be right back. I tell the story once every year. Laugh like it's the first time. Ha And she's like, I'll be right back. And so remember now, this is like our first like going out to a movie together. And so she goes, her room was down in the basement, and she goes, and I could hear her kind of rummaging around a little bit. Then she'd do the loop and check all the other girls' rooms and the living room and all the things. And like maybe they borrowed them and didn't return them. And so she did the loop of the house and came back to the entry about 5 minutes later and was like, hey, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Then she went and did another slightly angrier loop, and I could hear the noises getting a little bit louder and the muttering. Took my boots, came back like, I'll be right back. You know when you're dating everybody and you're on your best behavior, you're dating somebody for the first time? Yeah, that's not what this was. Then she went back down and did it again, and she did the loop. And minutes to some people are like hours. And God did not bless me with the gift of patience, so I don't have to be patient. It's not in the Bible or whatever. And I was in that entry for 1 hour, which is 10 years for most of you. 1 hour of, it's like dog years, 1 hour of my life. And finally, I wasn't a pastor. I yelled, remember now, first movie. Can we get in the freaking car? That's what I said. I'm being honest. I'll buy you a new pair of boots. I don't care about the boots. I don't believe in boots. Can we just get in the car and go? See, her obsession was not a shared obsession about boots. And her obsession with boots just about cost her the bankroll of future boots. Come on, church people, I'm going to make fun of you in a minute. This is what happens when somebody's obsession is not shared by Jesus. And I'm just going to get to it because it's going to hurt a little bit, but what happens is when church people forget the mission of Jesus, which is the lost sheep, the very mission that saved you, the very mission that found you, the very mission that caused God to turn his head away from Jesus on a cross while the punishment for sin and your shame was poured out on the Christ, the Son of the living God, and God turns his head away so that he can find you. That very mission that saved you, what happens when the church, when we come inside of the church, we lose the mission, we simply replace it with a lesser and rival obsession over time. Come on, church people. Sometimes we get obsessed in the church with things like peace. Anybody like peace? There's nothing wrong with peace. My wife is a peacemaker. I just want my life to be peaceful. That's all that I want. But I'm going to say, if Jesus' obsession is with the lost, sooner or later it will cost you the peace in some element, because you actually woke up into a spiritual war. You were in the dungeon, but now you wake up in the spiritual war for the souls of the people around you, for your own soul, and you wake up in a war, and for you to reach the mission of Jesus and share his obsession, it's going to cost you peace at times. Now, peace of mind and sanity, all of those things I believe come from the Lord. The Lord can heal and the Lord can do it as a byproduct, but it will cost you some peace too. Some of us, all we want is like a financial stability. Like you didn't grow up with much. You're like, just make sure the fridge is full. Just make sure that we have way too much. And just make sure that we're just like keeping it all. But sooner or later, the mission of Jesus is going to cost you some of that. Because you can't take it with you anyways. And what if we use it to invest and bring people to heaven and you get an eternal return on investment? And the Lord's like, because you decided to honor me with the tenth of your income, but because you decided to be generous with me, I'll take care of this too. But you're not going to find your security in this anymore. It's actually going to cost you some of this. Some of us want the perfect family and the perfect marriage and the perfect kids. I'm like, sooner or later, the mission will cost you some of the things that we've replaced the obsessions with. Some of us, can I talk to church people? Some of us, our personal worship experience has become our obsession. And we come in here and we're like, this is not what I like. The lights are too bright. The music is too awesome. People are too happy. We should be holy and grumpy. You know, or whatever it is. And our personal worship experience in church can be like our obsession now. You haven't invited a neighbor in 10 years to church, but we're obsessed with experiencing. I'm like, what's the experience for? You know that you get all of your personal worship experience in heaven forever and ever and ever. But when you get there, Jesus is going to be like, were you sharing this with somebody? Or is it just you? Like, I'm glad that you're good at this, but you can also go home and worship there and have your best experience of all time. It will never really make sense to you until you're sitting beside a lost person that you brought to church with you. And I think those are kind of the best worship experience of all time. It's a different way to look at it. Sometimes, this is how I feel about Venue Church. I feel like we're a great family that the Lord has redeemed and loved. But I feel like the time I lost Katie at IKEA. I feel like in some churches, and I'm not trying to score points off of churches, but it can happen to any church and it can happen to us. That's why I talk about it, is that some churches have lost kids at the mall, but they kind of have forgotten about them. You know what I mean? We were at IKEA. Has anybody ever lost a kid at IKEA? No judgment here. You don't have kids. You are a kid. Well, have you been to IKEA, like losing a kid in there? One time I went to an IKEA staff member and I said, I will purchase whatever you point at if you will show me the way out. And they're like, well, okay, so do you see that shower? You got to get into it. And then there's a little elevator that goes down in a secret tunnel. You guys been to IKEA? Yeah, it's a trap. It's a trap that traps people with low IQs, and we just like wander around and buy stuff forever. And one time, Pastor Aaron, we're in IKEA, and we're eating those meatballs for cheap. And Pastor Aaron leaves me in charge of the kids. And I'm like, okay, so if we're going to start pointing fingers, I mean, like, was that a good decision? I mean, it's not like we just met or anything. And I'm like, you decided to put me in charge of, we have 4 daughters. And my mom and I were there, and we were talking to each other. And one of the kids had to go to the washroom, and so we took the girls to the bathroom. And I heard on the way to the bathroom, code 99 and kids, code 99. I'm like, I told my mom, all smug, like, somebody lost a kid. You know, it's always funny when it's somebody else. Yeah. We got out of the bathroom, and then I saw Katie, my third girl, coming back flanked by IKEA staff, and I'm like, oh no. And she was a bit young for this conversation, but I'm just like, baby, there are psychologists, and one day you're going to talk to them about this, but what we're not going to do is talk to mom about it. So bury it deep. I'll pay for whatever that costs, but... Now, how weird would it be for me if once we figured out that she was gone, I was just like, Nasia lost one of her girls at the mall and had a very nonchalant security guard standing by, and she lost her Holy Spirit. She was freaking out, like, where is my girl? Where? And a security guard, she's like, help me find my kid. And he's like, this is his attitude. He's like, I'm sure she'll turn up. I did his funeral a week later. I'm like, you want to say that to Nasia? God's like, Jesus is like, you don't get dad until you've watched Nasia try to find her kid at the mall. You don't get it. And not only do you not get it, you might not even be a part of that obsession that saved you. But this is what we do in church. It's just the weirdest thing in church. We're like, well, we got it pretty good now. Like, do we care about the person who's not here yet? It's almost like what we do in church sometimes is me saying to my other kids and to my wife, like, hey, we lost Katie, but you know what? She's gone. We haven't really looked for her, but she's gone. Take too much energy. We're going to pour it into you guys because we still have 3, and that's not bad. You can pass. 3, we'll just eat more ice cream. We'll just spend our love and attention on Pastor James in Atlanta. You're going to have to choose up front. You're going to try to keep people. You're going to try to reach people. Because one of those things honors the Lord. And one of those things is when we are obsessed with the lost, it is the healthiest thing for you as a Christ follower. It is the healthiest thing for my family. When my family doesn't exist for my family, we exist to find one more. But Katie has to transition from being the center of attention. And this is what catches church people. Church dysfunction begins when the individual still wants all the attention, like when they were lost. You know the sense that you had when you came to Jesus? And you're like, this song is for me. That sermon is for me. Who built this place? I found Jesus here. I got to go to heaven. All the weight of my sin is gone. I can be healed of my trauma. I can. You know, it feels nice when you're the center of attention. But every Katie has to transition from being the center of attention to finding another Katie. And I wonder, would you do that as a church person? Would you shift your... Because this is what happens sometimes in church. We get so used to, like, it is nice to be at the middle of, like, Katie, we're so glad you're here. You can do anything. You can get away with anything. You know, when somebody comes in and they're far from God and they come in and they say things that they shouldn't in church. I had a guy one time tell me after a sermon, he's like, Pastor, I never know where you're effing going with those sermons. But I'll tell you when they're done, man, right here. It's kind of nice to get away with stuff. But as you grow up in the family, sooner or later, somebody's like, hey, you want to take the trash out? Hey, should you do the dishes? Hey, maybe you could bring some food to dinner. And we got to make this like church transition. See, the enemy wants you fixated inside church on being seen and found after you've been seen and found. Like nobody came to my house and asked how I was feeling. I didn't show up for church for a month, but nobody came over. You know, I didn't show up to my small group, but nobody came over. Nobody asked. One time a gal blamed me. She's like, but you never took my husband out for coffee. That's why he never came to church. And I'm like, he lived in your home. He never took me for coffee either. But here's the thing. He was just a church person who didn't want to go to church. I'm like, maybe I'm busy trying to take lost people out. The prodigal, Pastor Aaron's going to preach this in 2 weeks. The prodigal son, you know, the older brother, the church guy, gets mad when dad throws a party for the lost son. Dad's like, he was lost. He was dead. He's alive. We are partying like rock stars. Let's go. And the older son's like, nobody threw me a party. And the father's like, you have all my stuff. Throw yourself a party. You have all the friends in the world. You have all the support. When I can say to my other kids, hey, we got to go find Katie. But you guys have each other. The best way to be seen by our Father is to join the mission. I think a lot of church people are like Bilbo Baggins, you know, the Hobbit. He wakes up after all the dwarves are gone. They ate all his food, messed his house up. And he wakes up and he's like, relieved. But then he gets thinking, being a hobbit kind of sucks. My life is pretty comfortable. I'm not going to fight any dragons. I'm not going to do anything that matters. I feel like I'm going to have to go into the Lord of the Rings in depth here because some of you are looking at me. Maybe you can't read. Maybe you can't even watch TV anymore. It's this idea of there's a sense of adventure. It's going to cost you everything. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a hot mess. But it might be the thing that you were made for by God and the thing you were saved for by God. I worked with a guy named Kelly. I was an electrician by trade. And so we got any tradespeople in the house? Any blue collars? Come on now. If the world falls to pieces and the zombies come, go to one of their houses or you're dead. Office people go first. Where's that going? Yeah. So I worked with a guy named Kelly, and Kelly was hard against God. It was like all my job sites, like I don't know many people went to church at all, and he hated church. He didn't know why, but he did. He's like, they only want your money. I'm like, you haven't even been to church. I'm like, they only want your money. They this and that. And I mean, just angry at God. He was angry at God because he goes, has anybody here not believed in God and been angry at the same time? Yeah, you kind of believe in God. He goes, how can God forgive a murderer but not my mom? That's why he was mad. Well, I said, well, did your mom ask for forgiveness? Well, no, she didn't do anything wrong. And I'm like, well, that's part of the problem in society today, by the way. You can call sin another name, but it's still sin and you still feel it and it still separates you from a holy God. So I'm like, but it's a free gift of salvation, right? You're mad because God would forgive somebody who murdered somebody? Because God can forgive anything? God can redeem any life? And I was so frustrated for years. I was like, God, why does he not get it? Like it's us here and them out there, and why don't they get it? They just ignore God. Every car that drives into the school here, like hundreds of kids get dropped off here every day, and I'm like, they just don't get it. And then one day God told me, if you had Kelly's dad, you'd be Kelly. But for the grace of God, that God found my parents and they turned it around in that generation, and I grew up knowing the love of God, grew up knowing here's your life purpose, and here's how we do it, and here's what's right, and here's what's wrong, and here's what works, and here's what doesn't, and your life is to give and to give it away and to serve, and you'd be him, actually. And in that moment, it changed everything for me, and I thought, I wonder if we could create a church that Kelly could come to, and it would make any sort of sense to him. But when I'm preaching, am I preaching to church people? Sure, but I'm also preaching to the person who's been here for 20 minutes in church. We're glad you're here. I'm going to hurt your feelings like I hurt everybody's feelings. Common denominator. Because we love you, because God has a plan for your life, and I'm glad you're here. Jesus says in the Gospel of Luke, tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. We got any tax collectors in the house? Don't put your hand up. Just look around the room. Some people look normal, but you're like, some people, oh yeah, they've done some stuff. Notorious. You can look around. It's okay. Judge people. We're church. We can judge people. Tax collectors and other notorious sinners. It's interesting, though. Jesus didn't preach soft at these people. He didn't lie to them. He told them the truth. They loved him for it. But he also gave them the power to change their lives, too, right? So this made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law. So if you didn't grow up in Sunday school, these were professional church people. They're like pastors. It made them complain that Jesus was associating with sinful people, even, oh my goodness, eating with them. Even eating with them. Well, what happened was in their doctrine, and the doctrine of the Old Testament, it kind of came from that, is that they had this doctrine that if I'm clean and holy, and I'm next to or associated with somebody who's unclean and sinful, their dirty makes me dirty. But Jesus came in, and he's like, hey, this changes here and now. He said, this clean makes every dirty thing clean by touching it. That's the difference. It disagreed with their theology. If you're new to church, that just means what we believe about God. Theology. It's good to have good theology, good beliefs about God. But what church people do over time is they use theology to tell God, Almighty God, what he is and isn't allowed to do in their lives. I don't believe in lifting hands, but it's in the Bible. Well, it's not my theology. I don't believe in. Theology was never to tell God what he could do. It was to tell you what he already did and keep you open to a creative God who can do anything. You know, I could get into that. But Jesus said, get the dirt next to me and it all becomes clean. I can wash it all. And it messed their church experience up. So he told them this story. Who did he tell the story to? Well, it's a story about the lost sheep. And here's the thing I love about people who are far from God. Maybe it's you. If you're far from God, you'll be like, I'm far from God. I'm not trying to hide anything or be anything. That's what you church people do. No, it's just like, if I'm lost, I'm lost. I'm on a journey. Hey, if you're on a journey, we'll go on it with you. But so he tells this to church people. I have a shirt that has like a mushroom on it. And I was out in the lobby. One of the guys brought one of his workers, and you might be here, tattooed up. And he sees the mushrooms on my shirt. And he goes, hey, man, that shirt is awesome. I was just doing mushrooms with some friends a couple of days ago. I'm like drugs mushrooms? He goes, yeah, mushrooms. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't. You know, like, don't waste your life on that. God has so much more for you. But the other side of that is I walked out of that conversation when it was done, and I walked away, and I'm like, what a great church. I love my church so much. I'm like, this is why I got into it. I'm like, that's amazing. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he, now buckle up, church, won't he leave the 99 others? Won't he leave you, is what he's saying, and go search for the one that is lost until he finds it? Meaning dad's like, I'm not going to see you until you're going to have to do without me. But we like hanging around dad. We like the presence of God. We like there's another option when you grow up a little bit. Proximity to Jesus is being on the same mission with him. So you don't have to be left in the wilderness with the 99 other church people who no longer care about the lost one. You could actually you can do it. When we clap at church, we're not clapping for people. We're doing I should probably do that at home. Try it again. I like it. I love it. You're like, we're Canadians. Are we allowed to do this? I'm like, you're allowed to do it. It depends which crowd you identify with, though. The moment I started identifying with the lost as if they were me, without the good fortune of my parents finding Jesus all those years ago, man, I'll tell you, I started preaching different. I started thinking different. I started talking different. It just changed my whole life. I started worshiping better. I started reading the Word of God better because I had to. I had to get ahead of them. I had to be able to answer their questions. I had to lead. When he has found it, he will carefully carry it home on his shoulders. When he arrives, he will call together his friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, I've found my lost sheep. In the same way, there is more joy in the church at Venue over one lost sinner. Maybe. If we're a good church that loves Jesus and shares his obsession, we will be. If we reflect the heart of heaven, we will be. We can lose it, though. There is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and didn't stray away. The angels are like losing their minds when a lost sinner comes to Christ. And it's like, I don't know where this road goes, but I know where my road has gone, and I need Jesus. I need something. One person, messed up, far from God, coming to Christ, all of heaven rejoices. And then the church people are over here like, I got up and went to work. Jesus. Somebody give me a hug. I went to church 1 week out of a month. Somebody... You know what I'm saying? It's just like, what are we doing? We can't lose our way as a church. That's why I preach sermons that hurt you. You know why? Because they hurt me too. I told our small group, Pastor and I are doing a family dynamic small group. And if you want to come, it's a great small group to come to. It's probably the best small group. I said, every sermon, there's something in every sermon that cuts the inner Pharisee, that inner religious person that thinks it's better than somebody, that forgot where it came from. Every sermon, I'm going to hurt you know why? Because I got to do it to myself, too, to remind myself who Jesus is and where we actually connect. never forget where I came from. You know, my I have a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, who was offered a job. A church had gone from 3,500 people, you probably don't know him, but 3,500 people to 5,500 people in a year. Mega church, big church. And he got offered his dream job. So he was going through the brochure of the church of what they did all year. It was like building programs and all of this and all this, and the last page. And 13 salvations, 13 people came to Jesus. 5,500 people. 13 people. I'll bet you they did a billion more funerals than that year. I'll bet you more kids were born in there, and baptizing church kids shouldn't be that hard. 5,500. You know what he did? He closed it up and said, that's not for me. What are we doing? That's a zero net. That's a negative net in the souls of the city that God put you in. You think you work at your job to put food on the table. You work at your job because people are far from God, and he saw them and he saw you, and he's like, if they got to know you, maybe they'd get to know me. That's why you work where you work. That's why your kid plays on that team. That's why God has put you in there as the only hope of salvation they've got. And he closed the book up and he said, not for me. And he is part of a great church now that reaches people every week with the love of Jesus because something in his heart just shifted. He said, no, I care about what Jesus cares about. Now listen, you might come from another church, and all churches can do this. All churches turn inward. It's my job to keep turning it back out and be like, hey, we're glad you're here. It can be a little about you, like you're part of the family, but not a lot, because that's not good for you either. And you might come from a different church. You might have grown up in a different church altogether. We are good as a church of getting you back in the fight. But what we don't want you to do is just come and spectate every week and drink our coffee. Like, sooner or later, we're going to annoy you until you do something. We're going to annoy you until you get into your purpose and your destiny. Like, sorry, but, you know, dad's got to be dad and be like, hey, you got a whole life in front of you. Let's go. Or we'll annoy you and you can go someplace else and complain about me there. Something happened in the early days. I took my dad's church over in a small town and changed a bunch of things. My parents were sitting in the first service and changed a bunch of things. And I got an email from somebody. This is, I did that for 2 years, and then we actually closed the church, sold it, and came here 8 years ago. And I got an email from somebody, and it's one reason that you don't actually have my real email account. You have one that my staff look at, just so that you all are on your best behavior. But I got this email. I didn't know that at the time, and so I got this email. And there's like 18 or 20 sentences in there. And it started like, it was a family in the church that was unhappy with the changes. And it was like, I, me, we. The only time I appeared in there was like, and we don't like you. We don't like what you did. We don't like that you changed the name to venue. It's not in the Bible. I'm like, well, the church has been in a few venues, so I feel like it was prophetic. We don't like this. We don't like this. We don't like this. And we're not happy that this is not the same church as it was 10 years ago. I'm reading this email, and I get just grieved and angry. And I'm like, but this family that wrote the email adopted 2 Ethiopian street kids in the meantime, right off the street in Ethiopia. And it was like, they do not know how to act in a normal family. They are rough. They are violent. And it disrupted the whole family, but they took them in anyways. And I'm like, so what you want me to do with the church is what you won't do with those kids that are your kids now. What are you going to do? Like, push them back onto the street and say, like, you changed our family. It's not the same family it was 10 years ago. So push the girl out there and be like, hey, earn your living like other street girls do in Ethiopia. Hey, get involved in gangs, buddy. There's no room for you here. I'm reading this email and I'm like, every week there is a kid in one of our homes, broken, trauma. And because of what went on in the home, his heart got bitter and angry against God, and he left. He's just like, I'm out. But his mom dragged him to church, teenager. And he sat in that spot right there, sir. Second row back, and I preached to him for like a year or more straight, and he was angry at God, far from God. He's like, I don't believe in any of this. And every week I'm like, church people coming and preaching, but I'm like, God, if I could just get to. And the afternoon I got that email, it was still up on my computer. Jesse Fair walked in and gave his life back to Jesus and said, I've been fighting this long enough. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm coming back to Jesus today. Jesse Fair, who does all of this? Jesse Fair. Jesse and Layden moved here before we moved here. God has done something incredible in his life. But I made a decision that day. I will never again pacify an angry church person if it cost me one opportunity with one Jesse. Here's why it matters, because you were Jesse one time. It was you. It was you. I will never be happy in church until your brother is sitting beside you worshiping. Until your daughter is off of drugs and clean and sober and pure and redeemed, sitting beside you in venue youth. We're happy to be here. God has done great things among us, but we're never going to forget those who are lost. And that obsession, if you would share that with me, we'll get along for the long run. We'll be on mission together. We'll do anything that the Lord tells us to do. But if the parking team ever forgets the mission, I'm a little late. This is the last service. My cousin Carla died suddenly one night, left 6 kids orphaned. One of her kids found her. And I went to a family reunion 2 weeks later, and Carla's brother, my cousin Kelly, was there. And he walks in, and I can see he hasn't slept in 2 weeks. Haunted. And we sit down at a table with Kelly, Carla's brother, and her mom, my aunt. And Kelly's just a mess. He goes, why are we even here? Like, what do you mean here at the family? No, here. Why are we here? And his mom, like, just lost her daughter. It's like, we're here to be good people. We're here to, and he's like, what are you talking about? He goes, I don't think anybody knows why they're here. He said, but he pointed at me and he said, I think you do. Are you the person that somebody would point at and be like, I think you know why you're here? I had one moment in Kelly's entire life to share Jesus with him. We went out on a walk. I shared Jesus with him. Well, listen, somebody's Kelly drives into that parking lot every week. Somebody's son, somebody's daughter. And I've talked to Joe and the parking team, and I'm like, if they can't find a parking spot, Joe, I will come back and kill every person on this parking team. I will kill you all. And the next parking team will get it. But Joe he just laughs and smiles, and he's like, why? Because Joe came in one day and gave his life to Jesus, and he gets it. God gave him a wife, a single mom, and God gave him a daughter, no longer without a father. God has redeemed everything in his life. And he's like, of course, Pastor, we got it. We'll find a parking spot for Kelly. Don't worry about it. If you're far from God, I just want to give you an opportunity to come to Jesus right now. But some of us, we've been found, but along the way, we've been church people that have gotten a little bit lost. And I want to open up the prayer team for whoever's lost first. You coming back to, you're like far from God, just be like, hey, I'm far from God. I want to know what's going on. Front of the line every single time. But maybe you need to get prayed for too in the prayer corner. Our host will explain it, because you've been found, but you've kind of gotten a little lost and lost the heart of Jesus. And we want to get you back in the game where Jesus wants you. But if you want to come to Jesus today, then you pray this prayer and let's help them. Lord Jesus, come into my life. Forgive me of my sins. Be my Lord and Savior. Bring me into this family. I love you. Amen.